The massive crystal chamber floated in the darkness of space, orbiting a dead star that had burned out millions of years ago. Inside the chamber, 12 different alien species sat in a perfect circle, their forms as different as night and day. Some looked like giant insects with too many legs. Others appeared as floating clouds of gas that somehow could think and speak. A few resembled walking crystals that sang instead of talked. At the center of this strange gathering sat 5 humans. They looked tiny compared to most of the other beings. Ambassador Elena Vasquez led the human group. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and tired eyes. Her team included 2 scientists, a military officer, and a translator. The humans had been part of this galactic council for 3 years now. 3 long, difficult years. Every week brought new problems, new insults, and new reminders that the other species thought humans were stupid and worthless. The Hegemarch Supreme stood up. It looked like a giant praying mantis, but with 6 arms instead of 2. Its voice clicked and buzzed as it spoke. The Council calls this meeting to discuss the human problem. Elena felt her stomach tighten. She had expected this day would come, but she still hoped she was wrong. For 3 standard years, the Hegemarch continued, the humans have been members of our council. In that time, they have caused nothing but trouble. They ask too many questions. They help species they should ignore. They do not follow our rules. A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light spoke next. The ethereals agree. Humans spread dangerous ideas. They tell other species they can think for themselves. This creates chaos. Elena watched as one by one, each species listed complaints about humanity. The Zephyrians, who looked like singing crystals, complained that humans had shared farming techniques with the Verdani people without asking permission first. The gas cloud nebulans were angry that humans had sent medical supplies to planets, suffering from a deadly plague. These actions show that humans do not understand their place, said a creature that looked like a walking tree with too many eyes. They are new. They are primitive. They must learn to follow, not lead. Elena's military advisor, Colonel Harrison, shifted in his seat. She could see his jaw getting tight with anger, but Elena put a gentle hand on his arm. Getting angry would only prove their point. The complaints went on for hours. Humans had built schools on primitive worlds. Humans had asked why some species were considered better than others. Humans had questioned why the Council let entire civilizations die out instead of helping them. The worst crime, announced the Hegemarch, is that humans treat all species as equals. This is not natural. Some species are advanced, some are primitive. The advanced must guide the primitive. This is the way of the universe. Elena finally stood up. The chamber fell silent. May I speak? The Hegemarch's compound eyes focused on her. You may respond to these charges. Honored council members, Elena began, her voice calm and clear. Humanity joined this council believing we would be partners in building a better galaxy. We thought we would work together to help all species grow and prosper. You thought wrong, buzzed the Hegemarch. You are children playing at being adults. You must be guided. We have helped suffering worlds, Elena said. We have shared knowledge freely. We have treated other species with respect. If these are crimes, then we do not understand justice. A creature that looked like a pile of living rocks spoke up. Your species is 70,000 years old. The youngest member of this council has existed for 3 million years. You are babies trying to teach your elders. Elena felt the weight of their contempt pressing down on her. 3 years of this. 3 years of being treated like children. 3 years of watching the council ignore suffering because helping wasn't profitable. The Hegemarch raised all 6 of its arms for silence. The council has made a decision. Humanity has 2 choices. You can accept a guidance period of 50 standard years. During this time, every human decision must be approved by the council first. You will do only what we allow you to do. You will help only who we tell you to help. And the second choice? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. Immediate. Expulsion from the Galactic Council. No access to our technology. No protection under our laws. No trade agreements. Complete isolation from galactic civilization. Colonel Harrison started to stand up, but Elena stopped him again. She looked around the chamber at the 12 species that made up the council. Some looked bored. Others seemed satisfied. A few appeared almost hungry, as if they enjoyed watching. Humans squirm. How long do we have to decide? Elena asked. 1 standard week, the Hegemarch replied. Send your answer to the council then. Elena nodded slowly. We will consider your offer carefully. As the human delegation prepared to leave, the Zephyrian representative called out to Elena. Its crystal body chimed like musical bells as it spoke. Ambassador Vasquez, surely you understand the wisdom of accepting guidance. Your species has much to learn. Elena turned back to face the crystal being. We have learned much in our time here, perhaps more than you realize. The humans left the chamber in silence. As their small shuttle carried them away from the crystal station, Elena stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, 37 light-years away, home to 8 billion humans who had trusted their leaders to make the right choice about joining the galactic community. What are you thinking, Ambassador? Asked Dr. Sarah Chen, one of the scientists on the team. Elena was quiet for a long moment. I'm thinking about what we came here to find, and what we actually found instead. The council isn't what we expected, Colonel Harrison said. They're not interested in cooperation. They want servants. 50 years of asking permission for everything, Dr. Chen muttered. 50 years of being treated like children. Elena nodded. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is what happens to species that accept guidance periods. She pulled up a datapad and showed them files the Human Intelligence Service had gathered. 17 species have accepted guidance periods in the last 1,000 years. Not one of them ever graduated to full membership. They just disappeared into the council's structure. Their cultures died. Their independence vanished. They became tools of the council, nothing more. The shuttle fell silent except for the hum of its engines. Each human aboard understood what this meant. The choice wasn't really between guidance and isolation. It was between slavery and freedom. We need to get this information to Earth, Elena said. The President and the United Nations need to understand exactly what they're asking us to choose between. As their ship jumped to faster than light, speed, heading home to Earth, Elena thought about the faces in the council chamber. The arrogance, the certainty that humans would accept any terms rather than face isolation. Maybe they were right. Maybe humanity would choose the easy path. But Elena had learned something important in her 3 years with the council. She had learned that sometimes the easy path led to places you could never come back from. The message to Earth would be simple. Come home, or lose yourselves forever. The choice belonged to humanity now. The message from Ambassador Vasquez reached Earth through quantum communication arrays that sent information faster than light itself. Within minutes, emergency meetings started in government buildings across the solar system. In Geneva, the United Nations Security Council gathered. On Luna, the moon colonies called their representatives together. On Mars, the Colonial Assembly met in emergency session. President Sarah Martinez sat in the Oval Office reading Elena's report for the 3rd time. The words didn't get easier to understand. 50 years of asking permission for everything. 50 years of being treated like children, or complete isolation from the galaxy. It's not really a choice, is it? Said General Thompson, head of Earth's Defense Forces. They're telling us to be slaves or be alone. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, the Secretary of Science, spread Elena's research files across the table. Look at these records. 17 species accepted guidance periods. None of them ever got out. The Council absorbed them completely. Their languages died. Their cultures disappeared. They became worker species for Council members. President Martinez studied the files. Each one told the same story. A young species would join the Council full of hope. They would face the same choice humanity now faced. They would choose guidance over isolation. 50 years would pass, then 100, then more. Eventually, these species would forget they had ever been independent. They became tools, nothing more. "What's our military situation?" the president asked. General Thompson pulled up star charts. "Not good. Our entire space fleet has maybe 200 ships capable of faster-than-light travel. Any single council member has thousands. In a straight fight, we'd lose in days." "But we're not talking about a fight," said Secretary of State Williams. "We're talking about isolation. Can we survive alone?" Dr. Rodriguez nodded. "Actually, yes. Our technology has advanced rapidly in the last 50 years. We can travel faster than light. We can terraform planets. We can build space habitats. We don't need the Council's technology anymore. But we'd lose access to their knowledge," President Martinez pointed out. "Medical advances, scientific discoveries, cultural exchanges. The galaxy is vast. There's so much we could learn." "At what cost?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. Elena's report makes it clear. The Council doesn't share knowledge freely. They give their servants just enough to be useful. Real advancement, real discovery. That comes from independence, not from being controlled. The debates raged for days. In Congress halls and university classrooms, in military command centers and research laboratories, humanity argued about its future. News networks carried the discussion to every corner of human space. 8 billion people watched and waited as their leaders struggled with an impossible decision. The arguments split into clear camps. The pragmatists said 50 years wasn't forever. Humanity could accept guidance, learn what they could, and maybe find a way to earn real membership. Later, the isolation faction would leave humanity alone while the rest of the galaxy moved forward without them. The idealists disagreed completely. Dr. Elena's research showed that no species had ever graduated from guidance. 50 years would become 100, then 200, then forever. Accepting guidance meant giving up everything that made humanity special. Their independence, their willingness to help others, their belief that all thinking beings deserved respect. The military had its own concerns. Admiral Jessica Park, commander of the Mars Defense Fleet, presented classified intelligence to the Joint Chiefs. The Council's protection isn't protection at all. It's control. Species under guidance can't build their own defenses. They can't form alliances. If the Council ever decides they're inconvenient, they have no way to resist. Dr. Chen from Elena's team had returned to Earth and spoke to packed auditoriums. Her message was simple, but powerful. The Council doesn't want partners. They want servants. They've built a galaxy where 12 species rule over hundreds of others. They stay in power by making sure no one else can challenge them. Religious leaders added their voices to the debate. Cardinal Santos spoke for many when he said, "God gave humanity free will for a reason. To choose slavery, even comfortable slavery, would be to reject the greatest gift we've been given." The opposition was just as passionate. Senator Chen argued, isolation means missing out on thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. Medical, cures that could save millions of lives, technologies that could end poverty and hunger, scientific discoveries that could unlock the secrets of the universe itself. Corporate leaders worried about trade. Earth's economy had grown rapidly since joining the galactic community. Cutting off that trade would mean economic hardship for billions of people. Dr. Lisa Park, a xenobiologist who had worked with alien species, made an emotional plea. There are good people out there, kind, intelligent beings who want friendship with humanity. If we isolate ourselves, we lose the chance to know them. But Elena's research kept coming back to haunt the pro-council arguments. She had documented case after case of species that had started with the same hopes. The Verdani had joined the council 300 years ago, believing they would help spread agriculture across the galaxy. Now they were essentially farmers. For the council, forbidden to share their knowledge with anyone else. The Kalari had been master builders who thought they would help construct wonders across the stars. Now they built only what the council ordered, when the council ordered it. The debates reached a turning point when Dr. Sarah Chen presented her most devastating evidence. I've analyzed the council's records going back 2,000 years. In all that time, they've never once intervened to save a dying civilization, never once shared medical knowledge to stop a plague, never once prevented a war that didn't directly threaten their interests. They let entire species die out rather than help them develop, she continued. They call it natural selection, but it's really just indifference. They don't care about building a better galaxy. They care about staying in control. President Martinez called for a final vote after 2 weeks of debate. Representatives from across human space gathered in Geneva. The lunar colonies, the Mars settlements, the asteroid mining stations, the research outposts scattered through human space, all had their voices heard. The final debate lasted 18 hours. Speaker after speaker took the podium. Some begged for acceptance of the council's terms. Others demanded complete rejection. A few suggested trying to negotiate different terms, though Elena's reports made clear the council saw no room for compromise. When the votes were counted, the result was closer than anyone expected. By a margin of just 8 votes out of 300 cast, humanity chose independence over security. President Martinez read the decision to a watching galaxy. The United Earth government, after careful consideration of the Galactic Council's offer, respectfully declines the proposed guidance. Period. We choose to remain an independent species. The message went out through quantum communications to Ambassador Vasquez, still waiting at the council station. Elena read it twice, then looked at her small team. Well, she said quietly, I guess we're going home. Colonel Harrison smiled for the first time in weeks. Home sounds pretty good right now. Elena began composing humanity's official response to the council. It would be brief, polite, and final. No angry words, no threats, no dramatic speeches about freedom. Just a simple statement. Thank you for the opportunity, but we choose a different path. As Elena wrote those words, she wondered if the council had any idea what they had just done. They thought they were getting rid of a problem species. Instead, they had just created something they had never seen before in 2,000 years of rule. A species that had looked at their empire and said, no, thank you. The consequences of that simple choice would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the Galactic Council one last time. The massive crystal chamber felt different now. The same 12 species sat in their circle, but their expressions had changed. Some looked puzzled. Others seemed almost disappointed that their entertainment was ending. Elena held a simple datapad in her hands. The message from Earth was short, just 3 sentences, but those 3 sentences would change everything. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Elena began, her voice calm and professional. Earth has considered your generous offer of guidance carefully. We respectfully decline. I hereby submit my resignation as ambassador and request safe passage for all human personnel to return to Earth space. The Hegemarch Supreme's compound eyes focused on Elena. Its mandibles clicked in what might have been confusion. You decline? You choose isolation over the wisdom of the council? We choose independence, Elena replied simply. The chamber erupted in buzzing, chiming, and whistling as the council members discussed this unexpected response. They had expected anger, They had prepared for desperate negotiations. They had thought humans might even beg for better terms. Instead, they got polite resignation. Cathala, the Zephyrian representative, chimed like crystal bells. Ambassador, surely you understand what isolation means. No council protection, no access to our trade networks, no technological exchanges. Your species will stagnate while the galaxy moves forward without you. Elena nodded. We understand the consequences of our choice. We accept them. But why? The question came from the ethereal representative, its cloud-like form shimmering with confusion. Why choose the difficult path when we offer an easy one? Elena was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Because we've learned something important during our time here. We've learned what your version of civilization really offers, and we've decided we want something different. The hegemarch rose to its full height, towering over the small human delegation. Your species will regret this choice. Without the Council's guidance, you will fall into barbarism and chaos. Perhaps, Elena said, but if we fall, we'll fall as free beings. And if we rise, we'll rise on our own merits. The formal expulsion took less than an hour. The Council voted unanimously to remove humanity from membership. Elena signed the documents, shook hands with those council members who had hands to shake, and led her team out of the chamber. As the human shuttle departed, the council station, Elena sent a message to every human facility in council space. The message was simple. Time to come home. What happened next surprised everyone, including many humans. There were no angry protests, no sabotage of council facilities, no burning of bridges or dramatic final statements. Human personnel across the galaxy simply began shutting down their operations and requesting transportation home. Dr. Martinez packed up his xenobiology research station in the Centauri sector. He had spent 2 years studying alien plant life, work that could have benefited the entire galaxy. He copied his research files to public databases, left detailed notes for anyone who wanted to continue his work, and dismantled his equipment. Commander, Sarah Jo received the recall order while her medical ship was treating a plague outbreak in the Vega system. She finished treating the sick, trained local medical personnel to continue the work, and then departed for Earth. Captain Rodriguez was leading a security patrol in the dangerous Outer Rim when the message reached him. His ships had been keeping pirates away from vulnerable trade routes. He completed his current patrol, filed a final report on pirate activity, and began the journey home. Across council space, the pattern repeated. Human research stations went dark. Human trade ships completed their contracts and headed home. Human. Security forces finished their missions and departed. They left no messes behind, no unfinished business, no reasons for complaints. They simply vanished. The council watched this exodus with growing confusion. The Kalari representative, which looked like a walking tree with too many branches, sent investigators to former human facilities. They found everything left in perfect order, equipment properly stored, research data backed up and available, facilities clean and ready for new occupants. It's professional, the Kalari reported to the council. Almost respectfully done. This puzzled the council even more. When other species had been expelled or had left the council, there had always been drama, angry speeches, threats of revenge, sabotage, sometimes even small wars. Humans just left. Dr. Chen was among the last to depart. She had been studying the council's historical records, work that had helped Elena understand the true nature of guidance periods. As she prepared to leave the Great Library Station at Nexus 5, the librarian approached her. The librarian was a Neth, a species that looked like a cross between an octopus and a computer. Its tentacles glowed with data patterns as it spoke. Dr. Chen, your research has been illuminating. Will you not reconsider? Your work here benefits all species. Dr. Chen finished packing her personal belongings. I'll continue my work on Earth, and I'll make sure it remains available to anyone who wants to access it. But alone, isolated, how much can one species accomplish? Dr. Chen smiled. I guess we'll find out. The last human facility to close was the medical research station at Rigel 7. Dr. Park had been working on cures for diseases that affected multiple species. Her work was nearly complete, breakthrough treatments that could save millions of lives across the galaxy. The Council sent a special envoy to convince her to stay. Dr. Park, your work is too important to abandon. Stay. Continue your research under Council auspices. Dr. Park uploaded all her research to the Galactic Medical Database before she answered. My work will continue, just not here, but without Council resources. Without our funding and equipment, how can you possibly complete such complex research? The same way humanity has always solved problems, Dr. Park replied, by working together and refusing to give up. As the last human ship departed Council space, a strange quiet settled over the galaxy. For 3 years, humans had been everywhere, fixing problems, asking questions, helping species that others ignored. Now they were gone. The Council members told themselves this was a good thing. Order would return. The proper hierarchy would be restored. The troublesome humans were no longer their concern, but some of them noticed small changes already beginning. The Verdani agricultural worlds, which had benefited from human farming techniques, began reporting lower crop yields. The outer rim trade routes, which human security forces had patrolled, saw an increase in pirate attacks. Several research projects that had depended on human expertise ground to a halt. The ethereal representative mentioned these concerns to the Council. Perhaps we have lost more than we gained. The Hegemarch dismissed such worries. Minor disruptions. The galaxy functioned for millions of years before humans arrived. It will function perfectly well without them. But late at night, in the privacy of their private chambers, some Council members wondered if that was really true. The humans had been with them for only 3 years, but in that short time, they had made themselves useful in ways no one had expected. Now they were gone, and the galaxy felt different. Cathala, the Zephyrian, chimed a melancholy song as it stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity was traveling home to their small, isolated corner of the galaxy. The Zephyrian had studied human culture during their membership. They were remarkably adaptable, remarkably determined, remarkably stubborn. What would they do now, alone in the darkness? What would they become without the Council's influence? Cathala had a feeling the galaxy would find out soon enough, and when it did, everything would change. 5 years passed after humanity's quiet departure from the Galactic Council. At first, the Council members congratulated themselves on solving the human problem. Order had returned. The proper hierarchy was restored. The galaxy continued as it had for millions of years. Then the Kaleth plague struck. The disease appeared in 3 star systems along the outer rim, spreading faster than anyone had seen before. It affected 7 different species, killing within days of infection. Entire colonies went silent as the plague swept through their populations. The Council's response followed their established procedures. Form a committee, study the problem, debate resource allocation, calculate cost-benefit ratios, implement quarantine protocols. By the time they acted, 2 billion beings were dead. Dr. Venth, a Kalari medical researcher, stood before the Council with the final casualty reports. Their tree-like form shook with grief and frustration. The response time was unacceptable. When humans were here, they would have had medical teams deployed within days, not months. The Hegemarch Supreme clicked its mandibles dismissively. The humans were reckless. Proper procedures must be followed. Order must be maintained. Order? Dr. Venth's branches rustled with anger. 2 billion beings died while we maintained order. The humans would have saved them. The humans, said the ethereal representative, spread dangerous ideas about bypassing proper authority. Their departure removed that chaos from our system. But Dr. Venth wasn't alone in their concerns. Across the galaxy, other beings were asking uncomfortable questions. Why had the Council's response been so slow? Why did proper procedures matter more than saving lives? What had changed since the humans left? The second crisis came 6 months later. Pirates began attacking trade routes in the Rigel sector with unprecedented boldness. Merchant ships that had traveled safely for decades suddenly needed heavy escorts or risked complete destruction. Captain Thorax, a Zephyrian trader, brought his damaged ship to the Council with a desperate plea. The pirate attacks have increased, tenfold since the humans left. Their patrol ships kept the trade lanes safe. Now we have no protection. The Council's military committee reviewed the situation with characteristic thoroughness. They formed study groups, analyzed threat assessments, and debated patrol schedules. Meanwhile, more ships fell to pirate raids. The humans acted outside. "Proper authority!" the Hegemarch declared when Captain Thorax demanded faster action. "They patrolled sectors without Council approval. Such chaos cannot be allowed." "But they kept us safe," Captain Thorax chimed, their crystalline form resonating. With desperation, trade has dropped 60% since they left. Entire sectors are becoming uninhabitable. The Hegemarch was unmoved. Order will be restored through proper channels. But proper channels moved slowly, and pirates moved fast. Within a year, 3 major trade routes had become too dangerous for civilian ships. The third crisis was the most dangerous of all, though the Council didn't recognize it at first. It started with the Verdani. The Verdani had been model citizens of the Council for 300 years. They were excellent farmers who grew food for dozens of worlds. They never complained about their tribute requirements. They never questioned Council authority. They were exactly what the Council wanted in a client species. Then they started asking questions. Why do we send 80% of our crops to Council worlds while our own people struggle with hunger? Asked Elder Marin during a routine tribute collection. The Council collector, a floating, jellyfish-like creature, pulsed with official authority. The Verdani accepted this arrangement long ago. It is binding and beneficial to all. Beneficial. To whom? Elder Marin pressed. We have read about something called fair trade, a concept the humans discussed. Why is our arrangement not fair? The collector reported this disturbing conversation to the Council. Similar reports began arriving from across the galaxy. Client species were questioning arrangements that had stood for centuries. They wanted to know why they couldn't trade freely, why they couldn't develop their own technology, why they needed Council permission for every major decision. They all mentioned the same source for these dangerous ideas: human cultural records that had been translated and distributed during humanity's brief Council membership. Dr. Sarah Chen's historical research had been particularly troublesome. Her analysis of Council governance patterns, combined with human philosophical texts about self-determination and individual rights, was spreading like a virus through populations that had never questioned their place in the galactic order. Neth librarians reported that requests for human documents had increased by 3,000% since humanity's departure. Beings across the galaxy were reading about concepts like democracy, individual liberty, and voluntary cooperation. The human contamination is spreading, reported Tavosh the Magnificent, the Council's chief strategist. Their ideas are more dangerous than their ships ever were. The situation grew worse when the Kepler system declared independence. The Kepler colonies had been mining worlds, extracting rare minerals for the Council for over 200 years. They had always been compliant, never questioning their role as resource providers for the greater galactic economy. Then their new leader, Administrator Jex, sent a formal message to the Council. The Kepler Collective hereby withdraws from Council. Authority. We choose to govern ourselves according to principles of self-determination and mutual cooperation. The message included detailed citations from human political philosophy, particularly documents about the right of peoples to choose their own government. The Council was stunned. No client species had ever simply declared independence. There were procedures for such requests, complex applications that could take decades to process and were rarely approved. The Kepler colonies had bypassed all of that. They had simply announced their decision and stopped sending tribute shipments. The HFY Supreme called an emergency session. This rebellion cannot be allowed to stand. If we permit one system to leave, others will follow. The Council authorized a show of force. A fleet of 50 warships traveled to the Kepler system to restore order. They found the colonies defended by ships they had never seen before, sleek, fast vessels with technology that seemed strangely familiar. "Those designs," whispered a Kalari military analyst, studying the sensor readings. "They're based on human engineering principles. The Kepler defenders didn't attack the Council fleet. Instead, they broadcast a message that would echo across the galaxy. We have no desire for war. We simply wish to be free. If you attempt to force us back into servitude, we will defend ourselves. But we offer friendship and trade to all who respect our independence." The Council fleet commander found himself in an impossible position. The Kepler colonies weren't threatening anyone. They weren't attacking Council worlds or disrupting galactic order. They simply wanted to be left alone. But they had human-influenced technology that made their defenses surprisingly strong. A military assault would be costly and might fail. Worse, it would show the galaxy that the Council maintained order through force, not consent. The fleet withdrew without firing a shot. Within weeks, similar declarations came from 6 other systems. All cited human philosophical principles. All offered peaceful trade and friendship while demanding independence. All had somehow acquired defensive technology that made them difficult to reconquer. The Council faced something they had never encountered in 2,000 years of rule: organized, peaceful resistance based on ideas rather than military strength. Emergency sessions convened daily as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Mining colonies demanded worker rights. Agricultural worlds refused to send tribute until their own. People were fed. Research stations declared that knowledge belonged to all species, not just Council members. The Ethereal Collective sent consciousness scouts to monitor galactic harmony. Their report was deeply disturbing. The patterns of thought across the galaxy are changing. Concepts of individual dignity and self-worth are spreading faster than we can track. The human ideological contamination has reached critical mass. The worst news came from the Verdani homeworld. Elder Marin stood before the Planetary Assembly with a document that made the Council's blood run cold. A formal declaration of independence, written entirely in human-style political language. For too long, we have accepted that some species are born to rule, while others are born to serve, Elder Marin read. We reject this belief. We declare that all thinking beings are created equal, with inherent rights that cannot be taken away. The Assembly voted unanimously to support the declaration. As news of the Verdani decision spread, panic began to set in among Council members. The Verdani weren't a small mining colony or distant outpost. They were one of the major agricultural suppliers for the entire galactic economy. Their rebellion could cause food shortages across dozens of worlds. More dangerous still, they were proving that the human ideas weren't just dreams. They were practical alternatives to Council rule. The HFY Supreme stared at the reports, scattered across the crystal table in the emergency session chamber. In 5 years, the quiet departure of one small species had somehow triggered the greatest crisis in Council history. 10 years after humanity's quiet departure, the Galactic Council faced the collapse of everything they had built. Nearly 200 star systems had declared independence. Trade networks lay in ruins. The Council's authority existed only in their core worlds, maintained by military force rather than consent. The final blow came when the Verdani announced their decision to leave Council space entirely. Elder Marin stood before the Council one last time, no longer the humble farmer representative, who had served quietly for decades. Age had bent their spine, but their voice carried new strength. The Verdani people have chosen to follow the human example, Marin declared. We are leaving Council space to join something better, something based on cooperation rather than domination. The Hegemarch Supreme's mandibles clicked with barely controlled rage. You cannot simply leave. The Verdani have obligations, contracts, binding agreements. Agreements made under duress are not binding, Elder Marin replied, quoting human legal philosophy. A contract signed by slaves is not valid. We were never your equals in these agreements. Therefore, they hold no power over us. The Council chamber erupted in buzzing, chiming, and whistling as the members realized what this meant. The Verdani were one of the galaxy's major food producers. Their departure would cause famine across dozens of worlds. But Elder Marin wasn't finished. We go to join the cooperative commonwealth that humanity has founded, a civilization where all species are truly equal, where cooperation is voluntary, not enforced, where the strong help the weak instead of exploiting them. The words hit the Council like a physical blow. For 10 years, they had wondered what happened to humanity after their exile. Now they knew. The humans hadn't just survived. They had built something new. Within hours of Elder Marin's announcement, desperate emergency sessions convened across Council space. For the first time in their history, the Council authorized a diplomatic mission to human territory. They needed to understand what they were facing. The mission launched with the largest fleet ever assembled for diplomatic purposes, 100 ships carrying representatives from all 12 Council species. It was meant to show strength, but everyone knew it was really an act of desperation. The fleet reached the edge of human space after a month of travel. What they found there shocked them beyond words. The solar system had been transformed. Mars glowed green and blue, its atmosphere thick with clouds, and its surface covered in cities and farms. Venus's upper atmosphere hosted massive floating cities that gleamed like jewels in the sunlight. The asteroid belt sparkled with mining stations and manufacturing complexes larger than most Council space stations. But the real shock was beyond Sul. Humanity had established colonies in over 50 star systems. Their ships were sleeker than anything the Council had ever built, their cities more efficient, their technology more advanced. The diplomatic fleet was met by a single human vessel, a graceful ship that looked like it had been grown rather than built. Its captain, a young woman named Lisa Park, welcomed the Council representatives with polite professionalism. I'm Captain Park of the CNS Harmony. President Chen sends her greetings and invites your delegation to visit Earth for formal negotiations. The Council representatives were taken to Earth aboard human transport ships. The journey gave them time to observe human space more closely. What they saw defied everything they thought they knew about civilization. Human colonies cooperated without central control. Trade flowed freely between systems without bureaucratic oversight. Different human cultures had developed unique solutions to local problems, then shared those innovations freely with anyone who wanted them. Most shocking of all, the humans weren't alone. The transport ships carried passengers from a dozen different species, refugees from Council space who had found new homes in the Commonwealth. Earth itself was a marvel. The planet teemed with life, its cities integrated seamlessly with natural ecosystems. Floating platforms in the oceans housed millions of people, while massive vertical farms reached toward the sky. The atmosphere was cleaner than it had been in centuries. President Chen met the delegation in a simple building overlooking San Francisco Bay. She was older now, her hair completely gray, but her eyes held the same intelligence that had helped humanity make its crucial choice 10 years before. "Welcome to Earth," she said simply. "I hope your journey was comfortable." The Hegemarch Supreme towered over the small human president, its compound eyes reflecting confusion and frustration. "What have you done? Your species was primitive when you left us. How did you accomplish this?" President Chen smiled. "We did what humans have always done. We worked together. We helped each other. We solved problems instead of maintaining hierarchies." "But your technology," buzzed a Kalari. "Representative, your ships, your cities, your manufacturing capabilities, they surpass council standards." "Innovation comes from freedom," Dr. Sarah Chen explained. She had become Earth's Minister of Science, leading research efforts that had revolutionized human technology. When every mind is free to contribute, when every idea is valued regardless of its source, progress accelerates. The Council delegation spent 2 weeks on Earth and in human space. They visited colonies where former Council client species lived as true equals with humans. They saw research stations where scientists from dozens of worlds worked together, without bureaucratic interference. They observed trade negotiations where all parties had equal voices. Everything they saw contradicted the Council's basic assumptions about how civilization should work. The formal negotiations took place in Earth's United Nations building. President Chen led the human delegation, supported by representatives from the Commonwealth's member species. "We understand you're facing some difficulties," President Chen began diplomatically. "We're willing to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchanges, but we will not rejoin a system based on hierarchy and domination." The Hegemarch leaned forward aggressively. "You cannot maintain this experiment forever. The galaxy is vast and dangerous. Without Council protection, your Commonwealth will fall to chaos." "Like the chaos of the Kaleth Plague?" asked Dr. Park, now the Commonwealth's Minister of Health. "Where our medical teams arrived within days while your committees debated for months? Or the chaos of pirate raids on trade routes?" added Admiral Rodriguez, who had left his Council security post to help build the Commonwealth's volunteer defense force. "Routes that were safe when we patrolled them?" The ethereal representative shimmered with confusion. "But without central authority, without hierarchy, how do you maintain order?" "Order maintained by force isn't really order," President Chen replied. "It's oppression wearing a uniform. True order comes from cooperation, from shared values, from mutual respect." The negotiations continued for days, but the fundamental divide was unbridgeable. The Council wanted humanity to return as a client species. Humanity offered partnership between equals. Neither side could accept the other's terms. On the final day, Cathala the Zephyrian made an unexpected request. "May I speak privately with President Chen?" They met in a small garden overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Cathala's crystalline form caught the sunlight, creating rainbow patterns on the ground. "I have been studying your Commonwealth for these 2 weeks," Cathala chimed softly. "What you have built here, it is beautiful. It is what many of us hoped the Council could become long ago." President Chen nodded. "We learned from the Council's mistakes and from their successes. Not everything about galactic civilization was wrong, but the foundation was flawed. Some of us are beginning to understand that," Cathala admitted. "Your departure has forced us to examine assumptions we never questioned. The independence movements, the rebellions, the questions, they have made us see ourselves clearly for the first time." "What will you do?" President Chen asked. Cathala was quiet for a long moment. "I cannot speak for the Council, but I can speak for my people. We are tired of being rulers. We are tired of the isolation that comes with thinking yourself superior to others." The meeting ended with a handshake between the Zephyrian and the human. No formal agreements were signed, but something important had been exchanged. The Council fleet departed Earth empty-handed. They returned to find their empire in complete collapse. The independence movements had accelerated during their absence. Entire sectors had declared themselves free. The few remaining client species were demanding immediate reforms or threatening to leave. Emergency sessions became the norm as the Council struggled to understand how everything had fallen apart so quickly. The humans had been gone for 10 years. For most of that time, the Council had barely thought about them. But their ideas had spread like seeds on the wind. Every species that had met humans during their brief Council membership remembered their example. They remembered that cooperation could be voluntary, that all thinking beings deserved respect, that there were alternatives to hierarchy and domination. 6 months after the failed diplomatic mission, Cathala stood before the Council with a proposal that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. "I move that the Galactic Council be dissolved," the Zephyrian chimed. "In its place, I propose we petition for membership in humanity's cooperative commonwealth, as equals, not rulers.